Hey there, viewers. Some footage spreads fast, but this one, it's got people unsettled for a reason. CNN just leaked video of Diddy panicking inside his prison cell, and the way he breaks down has left viewers shaken. It's not just going viral, it's raising serious questions. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. Mic check. Cell block E. I'm not a writer. Hell, I barely passed English in high school. I'm more of a button pusher. Fix the feed, scrub the noise, reroute the patch, move on. They call me Contract Tech 417, or just audio. That's what the tag on my vest says, black on gray. I've been working on federal surveillance systems for about 6 years now, mostly as an outside contractor. They call me in when something breaks or something don't sound right. DC Brooklyn was never supposed to be my stop that week. I was on another job in Queens when the dispatch came through. Low priority glitch, they said. Audio distortion in the shoe. Just static loops. I knew better. Static don't just loop unless it's got something stuck in it. I showed up around 2:40 p.m., swiped through 3 layers of checkpoints. They put me in a holding corridor while they cleared the work order. Concrete walls, buzzing lights, flicker every couple seconds like they're coughing. The air smelled like bleach, metal, and something faintly warm, like someone had been burning hair. The guard who finally walked me in didn't say much. He just pointed. Cell block E, line C, feed 34, your problem's in there. They call it the special housing unit, but everyone knows what it is. Solitary. Isolation. The box. You go in there when you're either too dangerous or too high profile to mix with Gen Pop. I heard the rumors like everyone else that one of the big names was inside, that he was inside. Diddy, the rapper, the mogul, the one whose parties people whispered about like campfire stories. When I sat down at the terminal, the first thing I noticed was that everything in that section was still on legacy infrastructure. We're talking pre-2000s analog backups, VHS tapes, firewire ports. Half the cables weren't even shielded right. Someone had patched in a whole section with aluminum foil and masking tape. You could almost hear the hiss of dust in the wiring. I ran a basic frequency check on the surveillance mics tied to line C feed 34. Most of them were clean, some hiss, some dead air. One that was too quiet, like it was listening underwater. Then I hit the feed from cell E202. The signal was warped, yes, but not broken. Something was there. I played it once through, and didn't even process what I was hearing. I thought it was corrupted, too faint, too slurred, but when I slowed it down and ran a noise filter through it, the voice came through like something rising out of mud. Still behind the mirror. My stomach flipped. I checked the timestamp. It had been recorded 2 nights ago, around 3:14 a.m. Loop length, 7 minutes, 12 seconds. The voice came and went, sometimes muttering fast like it was chasing itself, other times slowing down like someone trying not to scream. Don't replay it, the reel doesn't stop. I pulled back from the monitor. My hand was shaking. I've heard inmates break down before. I've heard confessions, threats, sobbing, even a man begging for his dead mother. But this wasn't that. This wasn't even panic. It was something else. There was a rhythm to it, like it was meant to be heard in sequence, like someone trying to cast a spell backwards. The loop wasn't accidental, it was composed. I looked over my shoulder. The hallway behind me was empty, but the silence had weight to it. I don't spook easy, but something about that room felt wrong. I muted the audio and tried isolating the channel layers. Sometimes, depending on the mic sensitivity, you'll catch outside noise. Hallway shuffles, guard boots, even HVAC hums. But the waveform from cell E206 didn't have any of that, just one voice. Not even room tone, like it wasn't coming from the cell, but was inside the mic line itself. I printed the audio log, labeled it non-urgent, and filed it under code 11C, which basically means weird but not a threat. But before I closed the folder, I copied the full loop onto an old thumb drive. Something told me not to leave it behind. Now, I shouldn't have done what I did next, but I'm not good at leaving things alone. That night, in my apartment, I plugged the thumb drive into a burner laptop I use for side gigs, podcast editing mostly. I opened the file and let it play. This time, I wore headphones. The voice hit different when it was in your ears, personal, like it was sitting just behind your eyes. The distortion had a texture like dragging a nail down a nylon speaker cone. And there were things I hadn't caught at work, tiny clicks beneath the voice. A pattern, like Morse maybe. They still hum under the drain. The kids don't blink here. I took the headphones off. My ears were buzzing like I'd been standing under a power transformer. I checked the file's properties. Size was normal, nothing unusual in the metadata, except a tag in the comments section that hadn't been there before. It said, "Stage 2 begins." That's when my phone lit up with a notification. Someone had posted the clip to a burner forum I sometimes browse, the kind used by conspiracy archivists and audio weirdos. The post was titled, "Combs Loop/Cell Block Ritual," and had already been downloaded 73 times. I never uploaded it. The thumb drive was still in my laptop. My stomach turned. I yanked the drive and tossed it onto the couch. I checked the forum again. More comments now. Some people thought it was AI generated. Others said they got migraines halfway through listening. One user claimed the voice matched a pattern used in military stress testing. Another just wrote, "I've heard this before. Not from him, from someone else." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the waveform playing behind my eyelids. I kept thinking about that cell, about the silence on the feed, how the voice seemed to exist without room noise. Next morning, I called a buddy of mine who used to work Navy comms, the kind of guy who's heard black site chatter and scrambled jammers. I didn't say much, just told him I'd found something weird on a loop. He didn't laugh, didn't ask for the file, just said one thing. If it loops on its own, it's not a recording, it's a door. I haven't gone back to MDC since. They called twice, left voicemails asking if I could come back in for system review. I said I was sick, might say it again next week. But sometimes, around 3:14 a.m., I still hear the click. Not from the laptop. From inside the walls. Chapter 2. The click beneath the bed. I wasn't supposed to be in MDC. My deal was for county time, 6 months max, then parole. But something shifted after my last hearing. Papers got swapped, or maybe someone up top made a call. Either way, I ended up in Brooklyn's federal pen with a mop in my hand and a number stitched across my chest. I stopped asking questions after Rikers. Questions don't buy you peace, they just buy you trouble. They put me in shoe rotation on day 9. Said it was earned trust, but it felt more like punishment. Shoes quiet, too quiet. They call it the hole, but it ain't empty. The walls breathe. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean they hum, like someone's playing static through a speaker in the drywall. I was posted up 2 cells down from the high-profile guy. Everyone knew who it was. We heard the whispers before we saw the sign on his cell door. 37,452.54. Isolation. No interaction. You'd think being rich and famous would buy you silence in a place like this, but it only bought him a different kind of noise, a private one. First time I saw him was through the slot during breakfast drop. He was sitting on the edge of the cot, elbows on knees, eyes locked on the vent. Didn't flinch when the tray dropped in. Didn't move for it either, just sat there like he was watching something on the wall no one else could see. I was sweeping the tier that afternoon when it started. A soft clicking sound just beneath his bed frame, not rhythmic like a clock, more like something metal trying to scratch its way out. I paused and tilted my ear toward the vent grate on the floor. The sound stopped immediately, but when I moved on, it started again. Click, Pause. Next night, same thing, but this time the lights on the tier flickered. 2 quick pulses, like a warning. I looked up, expecting a blackout or maybe a system test, but nothing followed, just a low buzzing sound and then stillness. That's when I heard it. My name. Not shouted, not even spoken, whispered, like it had been sent through a radio turned just slightly off station. Fuzzy at the edges, but clear enough to make my whole spine lock up. I turned back toward the cell. He was standing now, close to the slot, not touching it, just near it, still looking at the vent like it was talking to him. I never gave my name to anyone in here. Guards just call us by our numbers. The inmates, they barely speak unless they're cursing or coughing, but he knew my name. After that, I started paying attention. Patterns. Always the same time, right after shift change when the lights do that flicker. The clicking under his bed would start, followed by the smell. Ozone. Not like bleach or piss or mold, like lightning, like something burnt clean, mixed with static, and sometimes blood. Not fresh, just the memory of it. Iron on the air, like old bandages. It mess with your head. Shoo Lordy does that to people. Makes you hear things, feel things. But this was different, too specific, too organized. One time, I asked a guard about it. Young guy, new to the block. I said, "Hey, that guy in E206, he always quiet like that?" The guard didn't answer at first, just kept walking. Then he stopped by the corner door, turned his head and said, "He doesn't talk to us. He talks to them." I didn't know what the hell that meant, but later that night, I saw something I still can't explain. I was sent to sweep up after a plumbing check. Drains had backed up near the far cells. Standard routine. They give us rubber gloves, 1 bleach bottle, and a plastic bag. When I got to Diddy's tier, I noticed his drain cover was off. I bent to inspect it, and something metallic glinted inside. I reached for it, thinking maybe it was a broken piece of pipe or a toothbrush handle, but when I pulled it out, it wasn't anything like that. It was a shank, but not like any I'd ever seen. The blade wasn't filed from plastic or metal scrap. It looked like bone, polished, carved with little grooves, almost like tuning marks. I held it up to the light, and for a second I swore the damned thing vibrated. Not hard, just a hum, like it was responding to the air around it. The guard saw me holding it, yanked it from my hand, eyes wide. "This wasn't made in here," he said under his breath. "It was planted." Then he turned and walked off. No report filed, no questions asked. The next 2 nights, I couldn't sleep. The clicking didn't stop. Even in my own cell, across the block, I heard it. Worse, I started seeing things in my dreams. Or maybe it was when I was awake. I don't even know anymore. Hallways that didn't exist. Rooms made of speakers, stacked high like shrines. Kids dressed in white, standing still while a man danced in front of them, wearing headphones and mouthing words I couldn't hear. One afternoon during cleanup, I decided to check his cell. Not inside, just around. I tapped the wall near the bed, low by the floor, hollow. Tapped the tile beside it, solid. Then back again, hollow, like something was built in behind it. I waited for the camera sweep to cycle, counted 15 seconds, and slipped a finger behind the loose tile. There was something taped there. An envelope. Old, yellowed like it had been handled too many times. Taped shut with electrical tape, the black kind you use for wiring. No postage, no dust, just one word written across the front in faded red marker. Playback. I didn't open it. I didn't even pocket it. I backed away from the wall, heart hammering so loud I thought the cameras might pick it up. I don't know why I was so scared. It was just an envelope, but it felt wrong, like it was waiting for someone else's hands. Diddy hadn't moved once during this whole thing, just sat on the cot, head tilted toward the wall, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. That night I went to sleep with my blanket over my head like I was 12 again. I swear I heard the envelope whispering. Chapter 3. Viral but muted. I've heard worse. Screams from hostage proof of life tapes, suicide notes encoded in FM radio frequencies, a high-ranking CEO who broke down sobbing in a TikTok filter voice, then tried to buy every copy before his kids saw it. When you've worked long enough in media containment, especially on the celebrity side, you stop getting surprised. But the comms loop wasn't like anything I'd handled before. It hit my desk 3 days after its first post. A junior analyst flagged it from a dark forum cluster we monitor out of habit. The file was small, under 8 TB, deceptively clean metadata. No tags beyond a timestamp and one phrase in the comment field. Stage 2 begins. It's usually the kind of cryptic junk we ignore, probably just ARG bait or a failed marketing stunt for a podcast, but then I clicked play. I didn't get halfway through it before I muted the track and stood up. My palms were sweating, my vision had gone tight around the edges, my old training was kicking in uninvited. Structured panic, that's the phrase I scribbled on the notepad. The voice unmistakably Sean Combs, though raw, hoarse, stripped of any public polish, didn't sound hysterical. It sounded rehearsed. Looping phrases, but not identical. Slight variation in pitch, cadence, breath spacing, like a conductor adjusting tempo as a test. That kind of pattern recognition used to be my bread and butter. Back in my military days, I worked in a division that handled sound-based interrogation techniques. We learned how to break people with echo timing, dissonant layering, and vocal erosion. But this wasn't about breaking someone. This was about replaying something that had already broken. I ran a waveform analysis. There were 3 dominant vocal frequencies. The primary voice was Diddy's. The second was a lower register, possibly female, but stretched unnaturally, almost subharmonic. The third wasn't a voice at all. It was a low hum at exactly 17 hertz, the frequency known as the ghost tone. It's not audible to most people, but it causes discomfort, unease, nausea, even hallucinations when sustained. Someone didn't just leak this, someone engineered it. I brought the file to our scrub team. They're the best in the business. Ex-Navy techies, underground white hat coders, the type of people who can kill a meme before it hits trending. We tried everything: watermark tracing, metadata corruption, acoustic scrambling. Every time we reprocessed the file, it regenerated itself back to its original form, like it was resisting deletion. Meanwhile, re-uploads were multiplying. Not on mainstream platforms, on places you need passwords to access, curse-tube variants, burner forums, encrypted archives that erase themselves after 7 downloads. But even in those dark corners, people weren't mocking the file. They were reverent, or scared, hard to tell sometimes. But no one was laughing. One thread claimed the voice pattern matches a Cold War CIA project called Echo Loop Omega, a shelved program meant to map subconscious trauma through repeated vocal stimuli. Another suggested it wasn't a loop at all but a reel, a sequence meant to grow with each playthrough. That made me pause. Because on my 5th listen, I listened 5 times, against all protocols, I heard something new. At minute 6, second 22, just under Diddy's voice, there's a layered phrase that hadn't been there before. It's almost whispered in reverse. Let him speak again. I isolated that segment and boosted it. It didn't clean up well, but it was there. Definitely not Diddy's voice. Too young, too calm, like a child trying to remember a prayer. We sent an advisory to our contacts at the major entertainment outlets. Quiet suggestion. Nothing formal. The memo said, "Do not comment. Any public acknowledgement validates its origin. We do not confirm the subject's identity. We do not reference the phrase, comms loop." The next day, a fake news site published a mock article about the audio, a parody, supposed to discredit the file as an internet hoax. But the comments section exploded. People were comparing experiences, headaches, vivid dreams, waking up to the sound of clicking. One user said his baby monitor picked up a low hum after he played the audio on his phone. Another said her brother had been to one of Combs' parties years ago. He went missing for a week after. When he came back, he didn't speak, just sat in front of a speaker, tapping the same rhythm on his leg. I've worked with every kind of celebrity crisis, leaked tapes, private chats, substance spirals, even cult rumors. But this one isn't about optics. It's not about protecting an image. It's about something else. The voice isn't confessing. It's transmitting. And the more it spreads, the stronger it seems to get. We tried again yesterday to clean the master file from our cloud servers. No trace left, or so we thought. An hour later, we got a new upload alert. Same audio, but the waveform had changed again. A 7th minute was added. And in that final 18 seconds, there's a new voice. Not Diddy, not the childlike whisper. A third voice, calm, measured, confident. He's not afraid. He's remembering. Haven't told anyone that part. Not my team, not the client, not even the legal liaison overseeing this whole leak situation. Because part of me knows what happens next. We're not scrubbing a scandal. We're muting a ritual. And we're failing. Chapter 4. He stopped eating on day 5. Most of the men down in SHU look alike after a while. Pale, sunken-eyed, strict, apologizing, like he was waiting for the personality cue that made definite impression with the uniform that never came. Only when I read the name off the intake sheet, Combs, Sean, did it click. That Sean Combs. I blinked, took a closer look. The man on the sheet and the one behind the glass didn't match in my mind. The world knew a mogul. Music, clubs, commercials, all that glitz and gloss. What I saw was a skeleton with a famous name stitched to his chest. Missy Brooklyn. Isn't built for care. It's built for containment. Our rounds are rushed, charts barely filled in. Most nurses here last a month, 2 if they're lucky or broke. I've made it 3 years, but only because I learned how not to care too much. We aren't healers here. We're handlers. Still, there was something about Combs that stuck in my head after the first round. He didn't blink when I flashed the pen light. Didn't flinch when I drew blood. Just kept whispering to himself in a voice so low it registered more like vibration than speech. He stopped eating on day 5. Before that, he was barely touching the trays anyway, just moving the food around like he was trying to spell something. But on day 5, he pushed the tray back untouched and muttered, "They're trying to keep the frequency in me." I wrote it down in the notes column. Inmate refuses food, paranoia present. But I didn't mark it urgent. Everyone in SHU breaks in their own way. Some scream, some pace, some sing to ghosts. His version just looked quieter. By day 7, I noticed the tremors, subtle at first, fingers twitching like a conductor out of time, then more pronounced, full-body vibrations like he had a tuning fork jammed into his spine. I checked his vitals, BP erratic, pulse unstable, hair visibly thinner than when he came in, and the graying. It wasn't gradual, it was like someone had drained the color overnight. Not just the roots, the strands themselves faded. I took blood samples again. That's when I noticed the color. It wasn't right. I've drawn thousands of vials in my time. Blood should be red, dark red if dehydrated, lighter if anemic. But this was dull, like it had been filtered through static. I don't even know what that means, but that's what it looked like. A color you can't describe. You see it, and your brain tries to turn away. I logged the vial for standard testing and sent it to the lab with the others. That's when things started getting strange. The results came back a day later. Inconclusive, no markers, No white cell count, no viral flags, no nutritional profile. Just a note, retest, recommended. Except the vial I sent never came back. They said it was misplaced. I followed up, asked the other nurse on duty, Maya, if she'd seen anything weird. She was the only one I trusted here. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts. She nodded slowly and said, "He's not malnourished." Hey, was resonating. I didn't know what the hell she meant by that, but before I could press her, the radio crackled and she was called upstairs. I never saw her again. They told us she quit, left her badge, her keys, and a single page of scribbled notes in the staff lounge. I found it crumpled under a takeout bag. Half the page was smeared with coffee, but the heading was still legible. Echo retention curve. Below it, a diagram looked like an EKG wave overlaid with audio spectrograms. In the center, a number circled in red ink, 37,452.54. His number. I folded it, stuffed it in my back pocket, and didn't tell anyone. After that, I kept my distance during rounds, logged the basics, stayed out of his line of sight. But he was changing, not just physically. There was something about the air around him, like the cell itself had a different temperature. I'd walk into the tier and suddenly feel like I was underwater. The lights above his door flickered, even when the rest were steady. One time, I checked his heart rate and my watch stopped ticking for 10 full seconds. Then came the convulsion. It happened on day 11 during second shift. I was standing in front of the cell, chart in hand, when I saw his arms start to shake. But he wasn't asleep, wasn't unconscious. He was sitting up, awake, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. Then his body began to move. Not violently, not like a seizure, more like a dance, like something was pulling the strings from inside. His shoulders jerked once, his neck rolled back, his fingers twitched out patterns on his knees. Like he was tapping out Morse code no one could understand. And all the while, his mouth stayed closed. But the cell filled with sound. Not from him. From somewhere else. A low hum, rising and falling in waves. The sound didn't come from the speakers or the hallway. It came from the walls themselves, vibrating as if they were remembering something too. I tried to call it in. My radio crackled, then died. The moment passed. He slumped forward, breathing heavy, but never fully collapsed, just reset, like the playback ended. I left the block early that day, told the guard I had a migraine, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Maya said, about resonance, about the way his voice didn't echo like the others, about how his blood didn't come back red. Something's happening to him, or through him, and I think we're just the room it's bouncing off of. Chapter 5. A Visit from the Voice. I've worked the telecom desk at Homeland's Eastern Facility office for 6 years now. It's not glamorous, and it sure as hell ain't heroic. My job is to monitor flagged inmate calls. Most of the time that means late-night threats to ex-wives, botched Spanish from wannabe cartel runners, or guys crying to their moms about commissary. We record every call, log the number, track location, compare vocal prints to a threat database, rinse and repeat. It's dull, but I don't mind dull. Dull doesn't keep you up at night. This wasn't dull. The system flagged a call out of MDC Brooklyn at 3:37 a.m. That's already strange. Inmates don't get call clearance at that hour, not unless there's a death or a court-ordered exception. But this one came through from SHU, Special Housing Unit. The flagged line? 37,452.54. That number had been popping up lately, whispers in the terminal room. That's the mogul, someone said. The one with the parties, the tunnels, the rumors. But when I tried to look up his logs 2 weeks ago, I got a red screen and a bounced access request. Classified clearance only. This time the system didn't just flag it, it panicked. The call didn't show a destination number, no timestamps on the dial, just a recording, 13 minutes long, already encoded into the archive folder before the alert even went live. I opened the audio file. The first voice that came through was warped, slipping between octaves like someone tuning a violin mid-sentence. I didn't catch what it said the first time. I thought the filter was broken. But after 2 replays, one sentence came through clear. Tell the old friend he was right. The vibrations opened the room. The voice belonged to Sean Combs, or something wearing his voice. I checked the metadata. That's when things started spiraling. The call wasn't logged under standard system encryption. It had an external file name, Wild King, OP3, a name that meant nothing to most. But I'd seen it before, buried in a redacted document during a training seminar back in 2019. A term linked to domestic surveillance anomalies. Rumors, they said. A failed psyop. A myth. Still, I remembered it because of the footnote. Audio resonance models mimicking religious structure. No human origin confirmed. Attached to the file was another tag. Source VPN. Calabasas node, meaning this call didn't go to a person, it went to a server, an unlisted one, registered to a blank shell company that only exists on paper in California. I tried isolating the background noise. That's where things got worse. There were children laughing, at first faint, then clearer. I thought it was bleed from another recording, maybe someone spliced it as a prank. But when I reversed the clip, a trick we sometimes use to find embedded signals, the laughter didn't stop. It became melodic. Not music, not a jingle, a hymn. Layered like a school choir, same pitch, same spacing, over and over, as if rehearsed. But what were they singing? I couldn't make out the words. I didn't want to. By the time I hit the 5-minute mark, I noticed the floor was vibrating beneath my chair. Not strong, not shaking, just pulsing. Like the air around me was syncing with the sound. Then came the knock. A federal marshal badge but no name walked into the control room. No escort, no request. He went straight to my terminal and asked one question. Did the call connect? I told him the truth. I don't know who it was to. It wasn't a call like we logged them. It was routed to a dead-end VPN. He didn't flinch, just pulled a thumb drive from his pocket and inserted it into the system. My screen went black. All files wiped, logs erased, the waveform vanished, like it had never existed. This was never a phone call, he said. You didn't hear anything. He didn't threaten me. He didn't need to. I knew what came next if I pushed. He walked out 5 minutes later. No trace he'd been there. No sign-in at security. No surveillance playback. Even the camera above my desk blinked static during the whole event. But I'd already made a backup. Not on the system. On a blank CD I burned the moment I saw the phrase Wild King. I didn't know why. Just instinct, like my body moved before my mind caught up. That CD sits inside a yellow envelope now, taped shut with electrical tape, same kind the inmates use in SHU. No label, just one phrase handwritten in black marker. The call wasn't to anyone, it was a reply. I'm mailing it tonight, to a contact I trust, journalist, works the dead forums, the ones with no moderation, no ads, no usernames. She'll know what to do with it. And quitting tomorrow. Because whatever that call was, it wasn't a message. It was an answer. Tunnels in the tape. It started with a late-night DM and a file link titled loop_audio_master 2.0 P3. No context, no sender name, just a short note. Compare it to the 2003 Westchester estate plans, specifically below the pool. I hadn't heard the Combs loop until then. I'd read the forums, I'd seen the paranoia spreading in the usual places. Audio breakdowns, waveform spirals, claims about hidden voices layered beneath the panic. But I hadn't listened. I deal in paper, not paranoia. Would I click the file anyway? Played it once, then again. By the third listen, I had a headache I couldn't shake and an itch in my palm like something had crawled in beneath the skin. I've spent 15 years as a freelance archival consultant. Most of my work is private, posthumous estate audits, cleanup for bankrupt artists, or the occasional scandal prevention gig for people who can't afford a real cover-up. But this was different. This was about something buried. The Westchester estate was one of Combs's earlier properties, bought under a shell company in 1999, remodeled twice, then quietly sold in 2009 with 0 occupancy records in its final 3 years. No tax deductions, no party permits, no domestic worker filings. But the blueprints were still on file with the county. I requested a physical copy through a friend at Records. He owed me. They don't digitize anything pre-2005. Good. When I unrolled the blueprint on my dining table, it looked ordinary at first. Pool, tennis courts, guest houses, perimeter wall. But the basement level had a marked tunnel running beneath the east wing, labeled Emergency Audiovisual Passage. Strange terminology. I looked deeper. The tunnel led to a chamber 42 feet below surface, marked as Sound Test Room B. No exit, no second path, just a box 12 x 12 feet, walled in concrete. And then I remembered something else from the leaked loop, the distortion pattern. It wasn't just noise. It had reverb modeling consistent with acoustic chamber absorption, the kind you only get in rooms specifically designed to kill echo. Like what's used in shoe cells. I pulled old MDC Brooklyn acoustic layouts, the kind used in facility construction bids. I ran the dimensions against the chamber in Westchester. They matching exactly. Length, width, surface material, vent placement. Someone had replicated prison architecture beneath a private home. But I went deeper. I started pulling maintenance logs from the estate, the kind most owners never check. Pest control, pool plumbing, HVAC calibration. In one file from 2007, I found an invoice referencing an issue in something labeled the rehearsal room. The note was brief, handwritten. Reverberation too strong, possible frequency bleeding, advise re-insulation, playback not clean. Feedback? The Ripley. That's the word that kept returning, over and over in the loop. In the metadata, on that envelope one inmate supposedly found in shoe. And now in the physical maintenance logs of a luxury mansion. I found security tapes next. Not easily. They weren't labeled under Diddy's name, but a nightclub vendor once did business with him, and I knew how he logged party footage. One tape from 2005, labeled Fundraiser Night, candle theme, had 42 minutes of slow-motion footage from a private party. At minute 23, the camera lingers on a group of children dressed in white, being led down a hallway into the east wing, toward the tunnel entrance. The footage cuts, jumps forward 8 minutes. The children are not seen again. No exit footage, no return, just guests smiling, drinking, moving in time to a beat we never hear. The audio track is muted. That's when I found the hand-drawn schematic, folded between 2 insulation reports, stuffed into a contractor's folder that hadn't been touched in over a decade. It was in red pencil, lines jagged and trembling. The words at the bottom made my stomach turn. Stage 3, collapse point. Initiate playback. No initials, no date, just that phrase and an arrow pointing to the sound chamber. I scanned the entire blueprint into my laptop, added the schematic overlay, created a file bundle and sent it to a media contact I knew from years back, the same firm rumored to be handling damage control on the Combs audio. Subject line: architectural confirmation, shoe mapping protocol in private residence. No reply. Not after 1 hour, not after a day, not even a bounce back. The files I sent are still marked as delivered, not read. I'm beginning to think they were never supposed to be read. I haven't gone outside in 2 days. My building's intercom buzzed last night and no one answered when I picked up. Not paranoid, but I keep hearing a soft click under my floorboards. Not like a rodent, like a switch, like a mic being turned on. And now every time I play the loop, I hear something new. Not just Diddy. Children singing again. Only this time, I recognize the words. They're the same words written at the top of the blueprint in faded ink. Sound never dies. It only waits. Chapter 7. He was just the vessel. They flew me in under a different name. Standard procedure when dealing with high-profile evaluations in federal custody. My credentials were real, but the badge said L. Carson, not my name. I was told it would be a straightforward psychological risk assessment. Inmate 37,452-54, currently housed in the Special Housing Unit at MDC. I've dealt with unstable celebrities before. Breakdowns mid-tour, catatonic states post-rehab, actors who couldn't tell the movie from real life. This was supposed to be another entry on a long list of broken egos and too much power. But the moment I stepped into the SHU observation wing, I knew it wasn't ego that had broken this one. The man sitting across the glass wasn't the version of Sean Combs I remembered from television or magazine spreads. His skin was gray around the temples and not from lighting. His eyes didn't focus on anything. His posture was slack but not tired, vacant, like a man trying to remember how to be inside his own body. He didn't acknowledge me when I sat down. Didn't move, didn't blink. So I began my usual intake. Date, case number, purpose of visit. A small speaker embedded in the wall between us crackled as I activated the comlink. Nothing. I asked his name. Silence. But when I reached for the audio recorder to log the session, something shifted. The moment I pressed play, letting a low band static tone fill the air. He moved, slowly, like sound was pulling the bones inside him. And then he spoke. To me, not at me. In the room. Don't start it over, just keep it running. I kept the static low. He wouldn't speak otherwise. Over the next 23 minutes he answered only when noise played. Not music, not voice. Just that same looping hum, like radio interference from another time. His sentences were fragmented, inconsistent in personhood. Sometimes he used his name, sometimes third person, as if describing a stranger. Sometimes second person, you, as if I had been there beside him during moments I knew I hadn't lived. Eventually, he stopped referring to any person at all. Just the real. The real always plays. You can't pause it. You can't scratch it. You just perform the script they wrote inside your teeth. His hands were folded at first. Then they started twitching. The tremor built slowly until his right hand separated from the left and began moving in circular patterns on the table. It wasn't random. It looked like choreography. Something memorized and repeated too many times. "Do you know what a freak-off is, Doc?" he said suddenly. I didn't answer, just waited. People think it's pleasure. It's not. It's rehearsal. You rehearse control. You rehearse giving it up. You rehearse forgetting. That's what the baby oil is for, so it slips out of memory. His voice cracked then, and I saw something surface in his eyes. Not pain, not fear. Recognition. He looked at the corner of the cell like someone was standing there, and when I asked him, gently, about the children, his whole body went rigid. His hands stopped its circle. His breathing became measured. And then he whispered, "They weren't guests, they were the trap." The speaker popped again. For a split second, I thought I heard another voice beneath the static. A child's voice. but it was gone too quickly to be sure. I asked him what he meant by track. He smiled, but not at me. At the parties, they said I ran the empire, but it was rented sound. I was the speaker, they were the signal. The empire was never mine. It was always borrowed noise, leased fame, hollow flesh. He reached out, palm up, like he was waiting for a mic. I turned off the static, hoping to anchor him back into the room. That's when he looked at me, really looked for the first time, and asked, "Do you hear the real now, or just the echo?" He ended the session early. Not because of a threat, not because of a psychotic break, but because I realized something horrible. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't faking insanity. He was remembering someone else's script. Later that night, I typed up my final note and sealed it in a confidential addendum to the case file. It read, "Subject does not display classic markers of delusion or schizophrenia. Instead, he exhibits behaviors consistent with embedded narrative repetition, the kind used in ritual trauma imprinting or forced personality dissociation. He's not the author of his story, he's the playback." I removed myself from the case. There's some songs you don't want to hear twice. Chapter 8. What went viral wasn't the worst part. They say it started with a single repost. No caption, no tags. Just a 7-minute clip uploaded to a dead Vimeo account under the name silent_frame17. It had been downloaded 27 times before the platform took it down. But that was all it took. By the next morning, it had spread to 6 continents. It didn't trend. It didn't go viral in the conventional sense. There were no influencers dissecting it, no TikTok remixes, no late-night punchlines. The spread was silent, like a frequency passed mouth to ear, heart to gut. Some said it wasn't even sound. It was memory. The media called it the Diddy tape. Others referred to it as Combs loop, but no one could explain what it actually was. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't even entirely human, some said. Just 7 minutes of layered audio that made you feel like your brain had slipped sideways. People who listened to it reported strange reactions. One nurse in Ohio said she fainted halfway through and woke up with blood trickling from her left ear. A father in Lagos claimed his baby monitor picked up static after he played the clip, the same pulse tone from the tape, and the monitor hasn't worked since. A college student in Toronto said she fell asleep with the file on repeat and woke up convinced someone had whispered, "Don't forget your lines," in her ear. YouTube banned it outright, so did Vimeo, so did Facebook, but that only made it spread faster. Deep copies surfaced on burner accounts, in unlisted Discord servers, on cursed torrent trackers, and it kept changing. With every repost, someone claimed the waveform got longer, that what people were calling the viral clip, the one that made the news, was actually incomplete. The file that made headlines? It was only the first 3 minutes. The real tape, the full one, runs 7 minutes and 12 seconds. And in the final 90 seconds, a new layer appears, almost too faint to detect. Beneath Diddy's voice, beneath the panic, beneath the static, is another voice. A child's, clearer than anything else on the file, as if it had been waiting for you to hear it. "He told us we were stars," the voice says. "He said we'd never be forgotten if we stopped blinking." The final 30 seconds contain a rise in frequency, a pitch that most adults can't hear, but which registers on lab equipment as 19.67 Hz, a match for a Cold War auditory torture protocol, unofficially dubbed the confession curve, used to unearth truth or implant it, no one's sure which. Experts can't agree if the clip is real or fabricated. They argue over vocal markers, room tone, the mathematical impossibility of certain frequencies layering without distortion. But it doesn't matter, because people aren't listening to it for truth. They're listening to it because they can't stop. Inmates inside MDC Brooklyn say the building's changed, not the structure, the sound. One man on Tier 3 swears the plumbing now pulses in the same rhythm as the leaked audio. Guards refuse to work overnight in SHU. One reportedly walked off shift mid-round after hearing music coming from cell 206. Music that wasn't playing. And then there's the newest inmate. No one knows his name yet. No public record, quiet, pale, transferred from out west supposedly. He didn't bring much with him, a few shirts, socks, an old Walkman. The kind you haven't seen in 20 years. When the intake officer checked his bag, he found a single cassette tape, labeled in black marker, all caps. "Play this if it ever stops." The officer tried to play it. Nothing but hiss, then a pop. Then the faintest echo of Diddy's voice, not panic this time. Measured, calm. You thought the reel was ending, but it's only halfway through. The tape stopped there. Won't rewind, won't eject. They put it in evidence lockup. No one touches it now. And that new inmate? He hasn't spoken once. Just hums. Always the same pattern. Always in time. Not the song from the tape. The silence between the notes. That's what no one talks about. The silence is part of the sound. And the reel? It never ends. It just switches vessels.